Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday Football Show with myself and Mike DeCourcy. I'm Tim Benz from Trib Live. Mike, of course, from the Sporting News, as well as Fox and the Big Ten Network. You can check him out there for all things college basketball, as well as everything he does covering the Steelers and the NFL for all of his columns at the Sporting News. We are brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar on the North Shore each and every Friday to talk about the upcoming Steelers game that will be taking place at Acrisure Stadium or on the road, wherever they might be, Dublin, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, or in this case, just down the street. And a day after, another huge game. You should go to Mike's for both of these games, Notre Dame and Pitt at Acrisure Stadium as well. Real quick, Mike, you got a thought or two on that game for the Panthers going in to play the Fighting Irish? Two ranked teams, one of the most hyped games in Acrisure Stadium history for the Panthers anyway. Even if Pat Narduzzi doesn't want to acknowledge its existence.
It's interesting. I said the same thing without the hyperbole, that Pat said, that I thought that it was sort of an exhibition in some ways, this game, because they can win the two games in the ACC that follow that are both really challenging games, Georgia Tech, Miami, and be in great shape to perhaps make the ACC championship game. But I can say that. He can't say that. He's got to say, 1-0 this week. Our minds are focused on the Irish. Must win was an overstatement. Of course, it's not a must win. You want to perform well, and you certainly want to win, but must win for this circumstance. I can understand why he was probably thrown off a little bit, but hey, he's been doing this for 10 years, 15 years. He's got to be able to handle it better than that.
Yeah, I was just saying that actually in a podcast that I posted with Justin Guerrero, who covers the Panthers for us at Trib Live. You know, what came through there for him was his still, however many years this is in for him, 11 years, whatever it is, his overwhelming lack of polish in this role. He still oftentimes just comes off as the rockhead defensive coordinator who's sitting in as an interim or something like that. You know, like, these press conferences, sometimes he just sticks his foot in his mouth because he doesn't know how to steer the car. Like you said, it's a very easy question. Must win? Well, technically it's not a must win because it's not an ACC game, and our overarching goal still remains to be ACC champions, but it's Notre Dame. Game day's coming in. There's going to be 67,000 people there. It's huge because it's our game this week. That's it. That's all you got to do.
There you go. That's Football Coach 101, Tim. And for those who aren't aware, just in case there isn't anybody, he literally said that that Notre Dame could put up 100 on them.
Beat us 110-10. Right.
Yeah. And so.
Well, my favorite thing was initially he said 103-10. Then he gave Notre Dame an extra touchdown just for good measure. I guess Love needed one more for the Heisman push. I don't know. But it was just it not just me, not just people in Pittsburgh who are used to hearing this. People outside of Pittsburgh, maybe who are paying attention to this game because it is Notre Dame, because game day is coming in, saw it as well. And just, what is this guy talking about? Does he do this every week?
Unbelievable. And the answer to that is not every week, but a lot of weeks.
Too often. Yes, too often. Not every week, but too often. But anyway, go to Mike's on the North Shore before both games. It's a stone's throw away from PNC Park at the base of the Clemente Bridge. 500 rotating taps. Get yourself a steak and a stone. 80 drafts that they got. Did I say 500 rotating taps? That's a bit of an exaggeration. 500 craft beers, 80 rotating taps. It's almost like 110-10. My mistake. So at any rate, let's get into the Steelers game right now, as we always do. That's why we're here, to preview the game that will be, including this week's game against the Bengals, 1 o'clock, Acrisure Stadium. The rematch after the Bengals beat the Steelers on that fateful Thursday night about a month ago. We always start with our 30,000-foot view, our view from Mount Washington, we like to call it, the big picture view, the state of the Steelers heading into game day. Mike, you go first this week.
Well, I will talk about some of the things that I have seen in reaction to the game against the Chargers on Sunday night, specifically multiple assertions that if the Steelers are not willing to follow their directive, which is to change coaches, then they should just sell the team. And at that point, I'm like, how long have you been a Steelers fan? Like since last Thursday? I mean, this is a franchise that is defined by the ownership being as solid as they've been for nearly a century. And for those who aren't aware, maybe they did just become Steelers fans last Thursday. The Steelers have won more games than any other franchise in the NFL since the merger in 1970. More games than any. Second most playoff games since the merger, even with the recent drought, which we all acknowledge exists. No playoff wins since 2016. They're still number 2 behind the 49ers. Second most division titles. Obviously tied for the most Super Bowl wins with the Patriots. No losing seasons for 21 consecutive years. So they're giving you entertaining football, something to be interested in. I think Mike Tomlin has coached, if I remember correctly, one game that had no consequence in 17 years, 18 years of being the head coach. He's coached one game that didn't matter to either team. It's remarkable. And like I get being angry in the moment. You wanted to beat the Chargers. You wanted to beat the Bengals a month ago, et cetera. You wanted to beat the Packers, and you could have. Look, I can't say you should have won all 3 games, but you could have won any of them, and you probably should have won at least 2, and you didn't. But you have to be rational about these things. I understand the word fan is fanatic and all that, but you can't. Like the Steelers have won 6 Super Bowls. And since 1970, since the merger, 6 Super Bowls. That's more than anyone else except one other team. And so if you're going to be miserable the other 40, that's 50, 48 years, 49 years. If you're going to be miserable the other 49 years, why bother? There's got to be better things to do with your time if you're going to be miserable 80% of the 80 or 90% of the time.
I think the reason why the fan ire has gone to Rooney, and actually I've gotten a lot of that too this week, these last 2 weeks. I think he is bringing it on himself because the obvious lack of willingness to even consider changing the coach over the fact that, it's usually default for Steelers fans to blame the quarterback. Everybody from Bradshaw to Pickett and Duck in between will tell you that's where Steelers fans' heads go first. So if it's not blame the quarterback because the quarterback has had just one bad game, I just don't think people are ready to acknowledge that this one isn't going to work out either. Then it's blame the coordinator. Well, they just fired the coordinator 2 years ago. And I think people are tired of changing out the lieutenants and the general is still there. And they know that complaining about the coach is like screaming into the void because the owner is not going to do anything about it. So that's why I think, Mike, you're hearing and getting, as I am, a lot more attention on the owner right now. And it doesn't help Rooney's cause that the other 2 ownership groups in town aren't exactly popular right now. So there's sort of
I think it should. It should help. You okay, your choice is the Rooneys or the Nuttings. Your choice is the Rooneys or Woody Johnson. Your choice is the Rooneys or Mike Brown. Your choice is the Rooneys or Jerry Jones. How many of these do I have to go through before you realize the Rooneys are a pretty good choice in that order?
Well, I think that it's the inactivity over Tomlin that's turning people's attention to the angst about Rooney. Like, there is a cognitive disassociation between why you're mad at Nutting versus why you're mad at Rooney. You're mad at Rooney for what he's not doing when it comes to a key personnel move. You're mad at Nutting because he won't spend. Like, the difference between you can read all the resume stuff you want to, but the biggest difference between Rooney and Nutting to me is at least Rooney is willing to spend to the cap on the players, and Nutting is not. That's the biggest and most important difference. Now, the thing about Tomlin, whether or not he's even willing to consider a change or how long it's going to take before he starts, and not understanding that there have been, if this season doesn't end in a playoff win, 9 straight years without a playoff victory, or perhaps even be competitive in a playoff game. Like, I get why people are frustrated about that and why they associate it most directly with Tomlin, somebody who is viewed by Rooney right now apparently to be a sacred cow.
I don't believe that they should be considering letting go of Mike Tomlin at all. But I do think they should have done something to make him less comfortable, so to speak. And that was, again, it's hindsight. But when the offensive coordinator position was open after the Matt Canada fiasco, Rooney should have said, you don't get to make this call this time. You made that one. You lost your privileges. You lost your OC privileges. We're going to pick the guy. Me and Omar, we're going to pick him, and we'll let you take him to dinner and make sure you can work with him. but you don't get to pick this time. And if you're not okay with that, then okay, that's where the exit is. But that was the mistake he made. And I would listen to any owner, any fan that would be critical of him for that reason. But sell the team is just a ridiculous overreaction.
Well, I guess my 30,000-foot big picture view isn't so 30,000 feet if everybody's talking about selling the team and firing the coach. I'm just more trying to figure out how to beat the friggin' Bengals, which shouldn't be such a big picture talking point, but it is because of what happened the last 2 times. And frankly, 6 out of the last 10, the Bengals have won. Oh, by the way, after the Steelers had won 11 in a row or whatever it had been. I'm going to say this. My kind of overarching thought about where the Steelers are going into this game against the Bengals is, please, in this game, can we stop with the whack-a-mole crap? Can we stop with, okay, it's the offense this week, it's the defense next week. It was the O-line this week. The week before that, it was the front 7. The corners can't cover this week. The receivers can't get open the next week. Every time we're done whacking something on the head, the opposite pops up. And that's what we're complaining about all week. We had just gotten done bitching and griping about the defense. They had a collective good game against the Colts, and then the offense's wheels come off against Los Angeles. Like, the defense wasn't without blame for what happened against Los Angeles, but if you put forth that defensive effort against a quarterback that decent, with weapons that are that diversified, and an offensive line that apparently can still run block with a third-string running back, and it's not just happened against the Steelers, that's a good enough defensive performance to win on the road against a playoff team. I thought the defense was a little whitewashed in the fans' eyes because everybody was so upset about the offense. There were some things with the defense I didn't like either. The failure to create turnovers. I thought some of the sacks were empty calories, as I've used that analogy before. But the offense was so stark, dramatically bad, you couldn't focus on the defense. And it's 180 the opposite of what happened going into the Colts games for the weeks before, where it was the defense's fault. It's just, I hate this phrase that Tomlin relies on all the time, but he's right. It's popcorn. As soon as one kernel is eaten, another kernel pops. And they got to figure out how to just calm it all down. And that should be against the Bengals this week, but it's a matchup problem on offense.
Okay.
So
well, first of all, you left out a mole, and you missed him with the hammer, and that was the special teams. Remember, special teams had a huge role in the Seattle loss, and were not blameless in Los Angeles this past weekend.
Boz missed a kick, they fumbled a punt, right? Yes.
So that's one, and two. I think you're 100% on here. I think this is exactly the problem. And it comes from being, at this point, an inconsistent football team. It's the definition. And that's what they're trying to grow toward. But it does seem like they get, like, the defense, the second half was a disappointment, but it wasn't a Green Bay level disappointment. And they held the Chargers to a single field goal for 28 minutes of the first half. And the Chargers only got a TD when they were placed on, I think, a 38-yard short field. So the defense was really good in the first half and adequate on the balance, given how much they had to be out there. It was entirely the offense on Sunday that caused the biggest problems. So I think it goes from game to game, and the number of times where they've had both really successful. I think you could say it against Indianapolis that they were. I think that you could say against the Browns they were, but certainly the Vikings for all but the one play on the defensive end. But I just think that it's a team that it continues to play consistently. It continues to find ways to foul up even the simplest things. The Roman Wilson fumble in the Colts game. You're finding a way to screw up the simplest thing. You have to convert a first down. It would be helpful if you converted the first down. Not essential, but helpful if you convert a first down. He had converted the first down, but that wasn't good enough. Those are the kinds of things that this team does because they are not a consistent football team. And if they don't get there, they don't get there. I mean, they don't get there where everybody wants to go, whether it's a playoff win or beyond. They don't get there unless they start to develop some degree of consistency.
Let's get to our keys to victory for the Steelers for this week against the Bengals after losing to them a month ago. And we're going to start on the offensive side of the ball, and credit to us for not overthinking the obvious on this one, Mike. One of us is going to talk about Jaylen Warren on third downs. One of us is going to talk about Rodgers. Why don't you go first and decide which one you're going to do?
Yeah, Rodgers has to get right. They can't be successful with him playing as he did in LA. And I know there were certain things that popped up, whether it was somebody in his hip because Broderick Jones got pushed back, or I believe that DK Metcalf acknowledged having flattened a route that wound up in an interception. But at some point, there wasn't any excuse. He was all alone when he threw the pass to Jonnu that would have been a first down at the 10 or 11 yard line. And instead of hitting him in the helmet or the numbers, he throws it 3 feet over his head, and Jonnu has to try to make a spectacular catch on what should have been a routine play. I mean, I think that play defines his performance. Maybe that one or the safety where he was out of the end zone and decided, you know what, let's go backward and maybe see if we can put 2 points on the board. So there were a couple of things that he did that were clearly his fault, regardless of what was going on around him. Like if he stays out of the end zone and takes the hit, okay, you're on the 1 yard line, but it's not 2 points and a punt for the or a kickoff for the opposition. He made some significant mental and technical errors in that game, and he's got to be right for this team to grow.
Yeah, that safety was Orlovsky-esque. And I do think, by the way, Jonnu did catch that ball. I don't think the ground aided in that catch.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a bad call.
But I thought it was such a bad throw, and he didn't catch it clean because of the degree of difficulty in an attempt to do so. The refs didn't give him the benefit of the doubt, and it was too hard to overturn at that point. So that's what I think. At any rate, for my offensive key, I'll go to the other major talking point of the week, and that is put Jaylen Warren in on third downs. Like, it's one of these chicken or the egg arguments, Mike, in the sense that the Steelers aren't converting on third downs, so they can't get Warren more carries, but they're not putting Warren on the field to convert on third downs, and he's their best offensive player so far. It's chicken and the egg, and Mike Tomlin has decided to order steak. I don't get it. Like, why can't Warren be on third downs when Warren was a guy that you elevated to a first and second down back based on what he did as a third down back while Najee Harris was here? The fatigue element of this whole thing to me is so overcooked, overthought, and overbaked. If you're that concerned about his snap count total and attrition throughout the game in terms of energy, what you can do, trust me on this, you can do this. You can have Warren be the first, second, and third down back for a series or two. And then on series 3, if you like Kenneth Gainwell so much, put Gainwell in on first and second down. All right. Or you can have Gainwell be the first and second down guy a couple times and put Warren in as third down for him. You could even have Caleb Johnson be the first or second down guy and put Gainwell in as the third down back there. But Warren's best skills are as a third down guy. We're still trying to figure out if he's good enough at first and second down. You're taking away what he does best and the name of what he does second best to not play him at all in the situation that you need the most help in. It's the ultimate self-defeating prophecy, and I don't know why they see it. Also, Mike, just by the way, I think you're hurting Gainwell. Gainwell, what he's done best as a Steeler is when he's been a first and second down guy in friggin' Dublin. Like, when he got the most time as a regular, just turn around and hand it off to him, he was better in that role than he has been in third downs. I've got some third down numbers on Gainwell that I'll share later for the stat of the day. But they are overthinking this, and I actually think they're hurting both backs, to say nothing of retarding the development of Caleb Johnson.
Well, there's a little bit where I would disagree with you. Not much. But one thing I will say is that they actually did that series shifting in the Chargers game, wherein in the worst possible circumstance,
they decided to do it at the dumbest time with Johnson.
I mean, my goodness, what are you thinking? This is where I have a problem with Arthur Smith. You are first and 10 at about the 3 after a great punt by the Chargers, and so now's the time to put the rookie back in. Are you kidding me? Like, he's about the 75th guy I'm putting in for his first carries of the game. I mean, I would put Hayward back there for those carries, not Cam, but Connor. I would put him back there for those carries in that situation before I would put in Caleb Johnson. And it's no reflection on Caleb, but You don't put a player like that with very little experience overall and no experience in that particular game at that stage, because it was only the third series, I think, that happened, into play for his first snaps. No, you want Jaylen Warren out there because he's your guy. He's your number one guy. So it was a terrible decision to do that. I think you have to play from strength. This is where I agree with you, Tim, 100%. Play from strength. If you put yourself ahead by playing Jaylen Warren as a 3-down back for most of the series. Now, like if it's a long series and you want to pull him out for a couple of snaps or whatever, but he gets the most carries on 2 series that put you ahead 14-3 or something, then you think about putting Gainwell out for a full series because you're ahead and you're playing from strength. But the Steelers don't get to the strength because of that approach to third down that you're citing. Jaylen Warren is a great pass receiver. Like he's maybe he's not Lev Bell that could play in the slot and all that stuff we heard a decade ago, but he is, for a running back, he is an excellent pass receiver. Very few drops, makes himself available, accelerates quickly out of if he's stationary when he makes the catch, he accelerates quickly and turns whatever is possible into more than you think is possible. So he 100% should be getting more third down snaps. I love Kenneth Gainwell's what he's brought to this team, but he shouldn't be the automatic third down option just because that's what we do. You didn't do that with Lev. You shouldn't be doing that now.
Yeah, and I don't think Warren is Lev, but I retreat back to my initial point. He's still better at it than anybody else they have on the team, and he got zero third down reps last week. And when Tomlin says we can't have him out there for every snap, you're right. How about half? How about more than Gainwell? Can we start with that and then worry about all? Because it's not even half yet. Since I'm talking, I'll go with my defensive key next. My defensive key is don't get scared off the basics this time against the Bengals. The basic core element of trying to defend the Bengals is minimize the 2 receivers. Minimize Chase and Higgins. You got scared because Chase Brown ran a couple times for decent yardage, and that screwed up the entire domino process of the defense. Apparently, that's what was said. That's what was reiterated this week. Don't do that. Let Brown get a run or 2. Okay, it's better than Chase and Higgins killing you. Just stick with Chase and Higgins, and you should be able to handle Chase Brown yourself with the rest of the defense. It's a very simplistic key that I'm advancing here, but keep it simple, stupid. Just worry about those 2, and I think you can beat the Bengals if you do a better job in worrying about them and executing against them.
I'm kind of sort of segueing. You set me up really nicely for mine, which is attack. The Steelers talked after the Colts game. Well, why were they able to hold a terrific Colts offense to they got 20 points, but we all know that the last 7 were nothing. So they held them below 2 touchdowns in that game, and they did it by attacking. They kept saying they simplified. Well, what does simplified mean? And then eventually they all kind of acknowledged that, well, they played on their toes instead of their heels. And that's got to happen in this game. They did not go after Joe Flacco at all in the first meeting. They did not attack the receivers at all in the first meeting. The defense played well enough against the Chargers. They played well enough against the Colts. The defense seems to be trending at least toward, if they're not trending on a straight line up, they are trending in a positive direction overall. They are put in too many difficult circumstances, either by being on the field too often or short fields, as happened in LA. But they are trending up. But in this particular game, the rematch of the game in which their trend went way down, they've got to go back. They've got to continue, I should say, regardless of the opposition. They've got to continue what has made them successful recently, and that's attack. That Bengals game is the one aberration in the Vikings, Browns, Colts, maybe the second half of the Packers game as well. But for the most part, the defense has been fine. But you just can't get this done playing against the Bengals passively. And I'll talk later about some of the stats that show that.
Well, I'm going to stick offensively here with my extra key. I'll go back to the offensive side of the ball, our bonus key. This has to be the tight end breakout game. It has to be. The Bengals are horrid against tight ends. Podcast that's up at Breakfast with Benz right now at Trib Live. Dan Horde, play-by-play voice of the Cincinnati Bengals. He came on with me, and he was talking extensively about how this is not just a Pat Freiermuth problem. This is a Bengal problem. They have stunk against tight ends for a long time now, and as he said, it happens 4 times a year with Andrews and with Pat Freiermuth. And you know what? With Njoku and the new guy, Farrell, is that his name? With the Browns, expected 6 times a year then, because they just can't handle in their zone defense the big target over the middle. Freiermuth, like half of his career numbers are against the Bengals. He's got 600 yards and like 48 catches or something crazy and 6 tight ends or touchdowns as a tight end against the Bengals. So it's not just him. If they figure out a way to throw bodies and eyes on Freiermuth, then this has to be Jonnu's breakout game. It just does. The concept coming in of the collective of the tight ends being a second wide receiver, I guess statistically it's not that far off. It's further along than I thought. If you add up all 4 guys, they've got more numbers than DK. All right. Now that also speaks to maybe DK isn't making the impression that we thought that he would, but they're not really impactful numbers. I think a lot of those numbers sometimes are coming in garbage time. A huge chunk came in the game that they lost against Cincinnati, where Freiermuth did explode against the Bengals. This has to be a game where you say, all right, all the tight ends. The last one did. They caught touchdowns. They all caught, I guess Hayward didn't, but they caught 4 touchdowns between the tight ends against the Bengals. It's got to be that and more so because the number 2 wide receiver is not there. Austin hasn't looked as good coming back from his injury. Wilson is popping. He has his moments, but he still has his regressions. Yeah. This has to be a huge tight end game.
I totally agree with that. And for me, the bonus key, the Steelers need to play for pride. They can't, in a game against the Bengals, which is a team that is still playing without their regular starting quarterback, a team that's 3-6 overall. You can't lose to that team, at home when you're trying to fight for the division and a playoff berth. The Steelers hold a 71-41 advantage over the Bengals since in their series, and that includes playoff postseason victories. Which, think about this: the Bengals would have to win every regular season game for the next 15 years to catch up. And if the Steelers continue to defend Jamar and T this way, that may happen.
Yeah.
But another interesting stat: the Bengals are trying for what would be their 5th sweep, I believe, since 1990. They have 4, I believe, to date since 1990. Steelers have done it 17 times in that stretch. So the pride is on the line, as well as divisional position, etc.
All right, time for On the Other Sideline. This is a theme to preview the week's opponent coming up. And my theme for this week was I was trying to come up with a way to not lean into the obvious of just throw the ball to Chase and Higgins again. So that got me thinking maybe that's my theme. Don't overlook the obvious. If you're the Bengals, that's what you got to be saying to yourself. Like, don't do this week what the Steelers did with the Bengals in week 18 a season ago, where they had won a shootout. They exploited that bad Bengals defense really badly.
Yes.
They were flailing after those 3 consecutive losses. They get the Bengals coming in, and they outthought themselves.
Yes.
And they tried to turn it into a rock fight for no particular reason.
Yes. And they succeeded in turning it into a rock fight.
Oh, that they did.
They didn't succeed.
They lost in their effort to do so. But like, if I'm the Bengals, I kind of look at that as a roadmap and say, don't do that. Just do what we did the last time. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, we're the Bengals and we're not supposed to win without Burrow anyway. But just rubber stamp what you did in that game against the Steelers last time. And frankly, what you did against them in the last home game in 2024, where it just took Russ having the best game of his Steelers career to beat you. Do it again. Rinse, wash, repeat. Throw it to those 2 receivers as much as you can and hope you have the ball last.
This connects to what you said as well as what I said earlier. Flacco is getting rid of the ball so quickly that it's hard to get hits on him. So I understand some of the problems with being aggressive with the pass rush, blitzing, it's that sort of thing. But a big part of the reason he's getting rid of the ball so quickly is that opposing defenses are so afraid of Higgins and Chase getting an 80-yard touchdown pass that they're playing off and allowing them to get short catches that turn into 20-yard catches. This is the most amazing stat to me about Jamar Chase this season. Over the last 4 games, he's averaged 114 yards per game. Includes the 168-yarder he had against the 168-yard or so performance he had against the Steelers. He has one catch of more than 20 yards in that stretch. One time.
Wow.
He went for more than 20. His long in those games, there's an 18, there's a 19, et cetera. There's one, I think, 36. So even that isn't like a 75-yarder. It's a 36-yarder. But they look, 4 20-yard passes is the same as one 80-yard pass. As a matter of fact, you saw it in a sense against the Steelers in the first game, that what would have been like I think a 55 or 60-yard pass that T. Higgins went down instead of scoring. In a lot of ways, it's almost preferable in some ways. If you get burned, you get burned. But we're not going to get burned on every time. Whereas you can get chewed on every time. We've seen that happen. I'd rather see them go after those receivers, make it hard to get off the line, make it hard to get those easy crosses that turn into 10, 15-yard gains time after time after time. I'd rather see that than them, and they give up an 80-yarder. That sucked. That hurts, whatever. I'd rather see that than them just get chewed up in little bits and pieces all the way down the field as they did in the first matchup. It's right now what they're doing and what the Jets did before them, what the Bears did in between. It's not working. They are feasting on those little bites. Make them try to go for the big one. And maybe now that the Steelers have a little bit better safety play, they'll be those plays will be a little bit less dangerous than they might have been in the first matchup.
Well, that is a good stat. You got me on that one. Since we're going to our stat pack here, do you want to go next and just stay with it with your stat of the game?
Yeah, my stat pack number for this game is 17%. And over the last 3 games, that's the Steelers' conversion rate on 3rd and longer than 5. So that's 6 and up. And there aren't many 3rd and 20s in that thing. I think there was a couple of there was one 14-yard and I think one 15-yard and one 20. So out of 18 situations, only 2 that were 3rd and relatively hopeless. And yet, I will tell you that even given most of them were 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 10, the Steelers are absolutely leading the league in give-up plays. Out of those 18 possessions, those 18 circumstances, 3 times they went back and got sacked. Okay, so we're down to 15 passes. 10 times they threw behind the sticks. 10 times out of 15 passes.
Drives me crazy.
And like I said, this is not 3rd and 20 for the most part. They're throwing behind the sticks on 3rd and 6. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, some of that is schematic and some of that is execution by the quarterback, et cetera. Some of it's the lines not blocking, whatever it is. But you can't be that bad. They went past the sticks, as I said, 5 times. They converted 2 of them. And those 2 conversions, no completions now, those 2 conversions were both on penalties, defensive holding or PI. So they've only converted 2 out of those 18. And I'm sorry, they did convert 1 time when they threw short. So 9 times failed. 1 time they converted. I think it was Gainwell, caught it and ran it for a first down. That's just a horrendous record in that circumstance. We've seen other teams tear the Steelers apart, sack on first down by the Steelers or hold on the opposition. And then the Steelers opposition still manages to convert with a simple in pattern, down and in, and there they are, or a slant or whatever. And there they are, they're past the chains and they convert. against a very good Steelers defense, or what should be a very good Steelers defense. And yet the Steelers get in 3rd and 7 and it's over. It's just that's just not good enough.
Since you brought up penalties, this was not going to be my stat, but I'm going to mention it because now my head is there. 4th and 1. And that's got nothing to do with 4th and 1, like 4th down and 1. 4th, that's the amount of penalties per game thrown by this officiating crew with Bill Vinovich, 4th in the NFL. Good news, Joey Porter Jr., just 1 defensive pass interference call per game is what they average. So that's good news. I don't know if you saw, somebody asked Jamar Chase this week, hey, what do you think of Joey Porter Jr.? And he gave a 1-word response, handsy. Okay, 3-word response, real handsy. So that's what he said about Joey Porter Jr. And he may not be wrong. He's not on the same penalty track as last year, but he hasn't had the 6th penalty game against the Bengals yet. He had 2 against the Bengals the first time around. So that's one stat that popped into my mind after you brought up penalties. I'll give you another one here. And this is the Kenneth Gainwell point that I wanted to bring up before. During the last 2 games, for all of his 3rd down touches, Gainwell has had only 9 total touches for 38 yards over 50 offensive snaps. He hasn't recorded a positive rushing yard since late in the Green Bay game. So for as much as they're using him, they're not using him. He's out there, but he's just out there. And that's where I come back to Warren, whereas I feel if Warren was there, they'd feel more obligated and obliged to use him as the weapon that he is. Again, I don't think they're helping Gainwell as well as I don't think they're helping Warren. And that's
before you move on. One more thing that we didn't add on to Warren as a 3rd down player. Warren is one of the best blocking running backs, blitz pickup running backs.
He's fantastic, yeah.
In the NFL now. As I always say, Lev Bell to me is the best I've ever seen in that department. But Warren is someone that you can put in that.
By the way,
what's that?
At half the size, too.
Yeah, that's what Warren is someone you can put in that conversation, right? As you said, at half the size. So you're not putting him in that or not leaving him in that circumstance to help Rodgers with the stray rusher here and there. Gainwell's not awful, but he's not that guy.
I want to throw this is another kind of really deep dive number. I got this from Matt Williamson, my partner at Fox Sports Pittsburgh 970. He put this in his stat pack that he throws up at Steelers.com all the time. We call it Matt Stats on our show, and then I steal a bunch of them throughout the week here and there for whatever I'm doing. So he came up with this, and it was surprising to me on 2 levels. Since he only runs play action 18% of the time, and that's 31st in the National Football League. And you would think, and I get it, older quarterbacks don't like to do play action because they don't like to turn their back to the line of scrimmage with the rush coming. They trust their eyes. They trust their head. They don't want to think about turning and handing off the ball at any point when they're not going to do it anyway. But this kind of, I think, dovetails with my previous point about don't overthink things if you're on defense then. If they're going to do it so infrequently, they're probably not sincere about it, so don't buy it. They're just going to throw, okay? Right. And the ironic part about this, Mike, like I said, they're 31st. The team that's 32nd is Atlanta. Why wouldn't Atlanta use play action all the time with Bijan and Algier?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
That's some bad coordinating when you think about it, because those guys are, Algier was unbelievable.
I'd buy it if you were going to throw after you take the handoff to one of those 2 guys.
Like, you get Bijan and he's not playing, and then that guy, Algier, comes into the game, and it's like, this is supposed to be the respite? Right. He was phenomenal in that Colts game. So, yeah, I don't know why with those 2 guys you wouldn't do it.
Okay, let's get to who will take flight. This is our chance to promote Flight Night at Mike's. We get 1 player from each team that's going to take flight in this game. Remember, Flight Night at Mike's is every Monday for Monday Night Football, and you're going to need a reason to drink because it's Las Vegas and Dallas. So go there, have a flight or 2 to get through the game to try to figure out if you're going to get your get-back win from what you lost the day before or throughout the weekend or whatever, or if you need a big fantasy win.
Yes.
You hang it.
Don't forget the fantasy players.
I have to throw this story out there. I put it on my podcast too with Jeff Erickson, the fantasy podcast that we do. If Ladd McConkey doesn't weave into Jalen Ramsey, I win my game. He didn't. I lost. The other 2 reasons I lost, Mike, were because, I don't know if you saw this, Tyler Warren, the tight end from Indianapolis in the Dublin game, the Berlin game.
Right.
He was sitting on 99 yards. He caught a pass, and he had like 3 extra yards where he could have gotten himself over 100. He just sort of pulled up and went out of bounds, Franco Harris style. He doesn't even have to lower his shoulder. He just has to get 1 more yard to get 100. He goes out at 99. I lose. Also in that game, Badgley, the place kicker, missed an extra point, so I lost a point. He needed another point just to get me back to even. So any one of those 3 things happen, I win. None of them happen. And then my opponent had Jamar Gibbs. That's the biggest reason why I lost, because he went off. Go. But our Who Will Take Flight nominee for this week, we pick a guy on each team that we want to advance as somebody who needs to take off or will take off. I guess I'm going to go with we're going to do the same one for the Steelers, and I can't get away. I saw you put Pierre in there, and I just don't have a better answer. I talked about the tight ends already, and with the cornerback situation such as it is, he's a variable this week. He's new. He's different from the amount of playing time that he had versus like Slay being out there the last time. And I knew this would happen. Like Eccles, good player, nice pickup. We talked him into being something more than he was, and McConkey ate his lunch on 2 important occasions. So I'm going to go with Pierre because I think he has to be a variable and continue his upward trajectory, something beyond just a special teams player. His size and capability against these 2 receivers might deaden their impact a little bit so that perhaps the score is 31-28 as opposed to 33-31 for the Steelers this time around.
Yeah, the reason I picked James was basically the same. I mean, I didn't ever think that Brandon Eccles was going to come out and all of a sudden it's like Eccles Island. I never thought that he's going to be Darrelle Revis or whatever. But I thought he would be an improvement over Darius Slay. And I have to say that the disappointing thing for me was that he probably wasn't. I mean, if like you broke down every play, he might have been a little better here, there, might have been a little worse. You were hoping for an upgrade, and it didn't happen. And so now Pierre is going to come in and probably get a lot of time on Sunday. And so Pierre's limited snaps this season, forget about what you've seen before because it's immaterial. His limited snaps this season have been almost without exception successful. He's been very good in very limited snaps. So does he transport that success into relatively full-time snaps? And that's the risk you take. And he's coming in against one of the 3 or 4 best receivers in the league. And by that, I mean one or the other. I don't mean that Jamar Chase is one of the 3 or 4 best. He is the best. And then the other guy is one of the so you don't know which one of the 3 or 4 best he's going to be covering. Who knows? But I think that he's the most important player. So when you said him as well, I thought we could have an interesting discussion about why he's so important. He has to be good this week. Hopefully Eccles will be able to step it up a little bit from where he was in LA. I don't think his challenge is quite as great. It can be dangerous at times, but I don't think it's quite as great in this game as it was in LA. So maybe he'll do a better job.
All right. Who's my Cincinnati guy is Orlando Brown at left tackle, because, we talked about Mims quite a bit coming out of that game, what he did against TJ Watt. I guess what needs to be talked about now is like Highsmith is actually the guy who's been generating more pressure of late. So right. I'm going to go with Brown on the other side to try to block him based on what we've been seeing from how the pass rush has been delineated the past couple of weeks for the Steelers. And I don't know, maybe that's commentary about where Watt is or Watt isn't. The sacks that they got last week against Herbert, I know they got quite a few statistically. They got 5. They had, I think, something like 11 hits too. There was a constant pass rush. The pass rush was present, but it's more acknowledgement of what are sacks really for the Steelers. Like one of Watt's sacks came in absolute garbage time. It didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
The 2 that Highsmith had were impactful. One helped create a punt. The other one took them out of field goal range, maybe from a touchdown, from moving the sticks. It was on a 3rd down. That's what it was. It was on a 3rd down. So, but the other 3 One of them, I think, resulted in a touchdown drive anyway. One of them resulted in a field goal drive anyway. And I guess the third one did create a punt. But it's not like the sacks were quite as impactful as you want them to be if they're big plays on defense.
Right.
But I'm going to go with Brown because he's got Highsmith this week.
Yeah, for me, I think the Steelers have never really been comfortable defending T. Higgins. I think that's one of the reasons why earlier on, when the defense was better, the plan generally was double T, play Jamar straight up. You're going to get hurt by somebody, and you're probably going to have to take a couple of body blows on that. But it's the best approach. They didn't do that much in the first game. That wasn't the standard approach in the first game. They did limit Higgins somewhat, but on the biggest play of the game, they didn't limit him at all. He limited himself to an extent.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that they have a great setup to match up against him. Pierre doesn't change that math. Joey is a little small physically to defend him. So I think Higgins probably has a pretty good game. But if you can limit the impact of that by not giving Chase 160 yards or whatever he got against the Steelers the first time, then I think that you can live with that.
Time now to go around the league. This is where we find a couple nuggets from across the league. And I'll say this. One thing I want to focus on, Mike, is as soon as the Steelers game is done against the Bengals, pick up the clicker and get ready to keep using it for the 4 o'clock window, because there's a lot of good games in the 4 o'clock window. Seattle, Los Angeles, that's huge in the NFC West. Kansas City and Denver, that's huge in the AFC West. Then you also got an intriguing game that might go a long way to determining, say, the last wild card in the AFC. That's Los Angeles at Jacksonville. The only other game really of note, I think, in the 1 o'clock window with the Steelers is Tampa Bay at Buffalo. Here's also why that is significant, because finally the Steelers don't have a game with J.J. Watt and Ian Eagle on the call. Like this, they are 4-0. 4-0, the Steelers are, with Watt, Ian, and Evan Washburn as the broadcast team this year on CBS. 4-0. And now they've got Harlan. I forgot who the commentator. Oh, Trent Green, and Melanie Collins. That's the crew that's going to be doing the Steelers game at Acrisure Stadium. But it is a Sunday afternoon wins. I know they like to try to budget all these games for primetime. I told you the dog game that's on Monday night. We got Jets-Patriots last night. Of course, the Patriots won that one. I'm not surprised at that. The Sunday night game is good, though, too. I think the 4 best teams in the NFC are all playing each other this weekend, because the Sunday night game is Philly and Detroit, so that'll be intriguing.
Right. For me, I looked at the fact that the Pats are finally the favorite, the betting favorite, to win the AFC's number 1 seed, to earn the AFC's number 1 seed. And there was a very long period of time when the Chiefs and the Bills were sticking in that favorite spot.
Like the Ravens. The Ravens are the same when the Steelers are like 4-1 or whatever, remember?
Yes. So I did some math on that, and over the last 5 years, the average AFC number 1 seed had 13.6 wins. So you can round down to 13 or round up to 14, your choice, but it's still a truckload of wins. And right now, for the Chiefs to get there, just to get to 12 wins, not even the standard, but the lowest number that any number 1 seed has had, which is 12 wins in that 5-year period, they'd have to go 7-1 at this point. The Bills it's still the 3rd betting favorite as of now. They have to go 6-2 to get to 12 wins. The Pats, I think it's going to be very difficult for anybody to take the 1 seed away from them at this stage, because they've got 2 Jets. Well, that when I wrote this down, they had 2. Now they have 1 more. And you saw how comfortable last night's first one was, and then a Giants game left. So 9-2 with the Jets and the Giants still coming. Going to be hard for the Patriots to fumble that away.
I think it's probably best right now, because we're looking at the time here. I'll tell you what, Mike, let's segue into some questions that we've got here, some comments from folks, and there's an easy leaping off point since you brought up the Patriots, and I was just trying to scroll here to find this. Our first comment from Brian. This really does tie right into what you were saying, and something else I wanted to talk about too. He says Drake May for MVP. I'm not there, and it's got nothing to do with May. It's got nothing to do with Stafford. Like, you are allowed to not vote for a quarterback for MVP.
Yes.
And I don't know how you don't vote for Jonathan Taylor at this point. And I get it. He's a quarterback from New England, so we're going to talk about him a lot. Lord knows the Boston media is. I get it, all right? I was part of that media corps. They love to talk about the quarterback, from what I understand. There was a good one there for a little while. And everybody wants to do that passing of the torch thing, even though there's a guy in between. That's fine, whatever. But I don't think this is a year where you bypass the kind of season that Taylor's having at running back. And frankly, maybe I shouldn't think this way, but maybe the award just shouldn't exist. But like, if you're going to give it to May or Stafford, which I think is giving it to a quarterback for the sake of giving it to a quarterback, then Taylor's the offensive player of the year, which is nice. But then I think that should be Njigba from Seattle. Like, those are my two guys. Those are my first and second place guys for MVP right now.
If you're going to give the award to Drake May at this point, just change the letter MVQ instead of MVP. I can't remember what year was it.
Stafford or not?
I mean, I still want to see how they finish, because I'm not convinced that they win their division yet. I really like Seattle, and so we'll see how that goes. But I remember around 17 or 18. I can't remember the exact year. It was Ezekiel Elliott's big year in Dallas, and he should have won MVP easily, but he's not a quarterback. Last year, Saquon, there's just not enough attention paid, and it doesn't always have to be an offensive player even. I mean, there have been years when Aaron Donald was the MVP of the league, and I don't know whether he ever won that award. I don't think he did. Aaron Donald was the best player in the league and the most impactful player in the league a few years, and if I remember correctly, he did not ever win MVP. So I think, look, it's the same in the Heisman. It's become preposterous, the lengths that football writers and broadcasters will go to award a quarterback over every other position.
Charles says Steelers win the division at 9-8. Football gods repay them for the 12-4 Tebow wildcard team. They've had plenty of time to do that. I don't think that repayment's coming. And if they were going to repay them at some point, I would say that the Jesse James play would have come into the calculus before 9-8 and winning the division. They could win 9. Part of one thing to watch in that 4:00 window, I forgot to mention this, the Browns-Ravens game is also in the 4:00 window. And let's see how Lamar is, because he missed a day of practice again this week too. But their schedule is soft now moving forward with Baltimore. I know a lot of people ticketed 6-6. Like, there's some folks who are saying that they might be evened up at 6-6 to be atop the AFC through week 13, 12 games apiece. It could happen this week. They're now just a game apart. Right. And if they beat the Browns, while the Steelers could lose to the Bengals again, well, then that whole hot start is completely flushed, and we're having an entirely more alarming conversation.
It's hard to figure how the first place schedule has turned into, such a easy sprint for.
Well, they got everything loaded up.
I know it was front loaded, but I mean, they're getting a very steady diet of light calories now. It's hard to figure out exactly how that worked out. It's just, but sometimes it's bad luck. I mean, the Seattle game turned out to be a tremendously difficult game for the Steelers. I'm not sure whether that was, on the preseason menu, that it was going to be really difficult. The New England game, although they won it, it was tremendously difficult. The Indianapolis game, who had them at 7-2 coming in, et cetera, or 7-1, excuse me, coming in, et cetera. It's just been, some breaks have not gone the Steelers' way, and they haven't made many of their own.
All right, this one is this guy's mad at you, Mike. He says that you said that they shouldn't fire Tomlin, then you go on to list 20 things that are Tomlin's fault.
Well, I think that when you have a successful coach, you try to make him and his circumstance better. I believe this was just as I believe that the Penn State made a big mistake with firing James Franklin. It's not easy to get a good coach. It's not. I thought you were going to bring up.
Afraid of it, though. You can't be.
No, it's not about afraid. It's just about what's smart. Like I've seen some people, and I thought you might bring this up, and maybe that's still on your list. I'm not sure. I've seen some people talk about, well, look, the Patriots moved on and they got Vrabel, and now look how successful they are. But the Titans moved on from a guy that I wouldn't have fired from that job for another 5 years at minimum. I think Vrabel's a terrific football coach. They had a terrific football coach under their employ. He had a couple of 7 and 9 years, and they said, that's it. And now they are the worst team in the league.
All right, well, then would the Steelers have been wise to have gotten rid of Tomlin when Vrabel was available?
I mean, would it be an upgrade? Not necessarily. Would it have been a change that made people happy because it was a change? Yes. I don't think that it would have been a step back. I think Vrabel's terrific. I think Tomlin's terrific. I think the difference between the two of them right now is that Vrabel has better ideas about how to, about his coordinators than Mike does. I think Mike's.
Well, he also has a quarterback.
Well, yeah, he does, but I mean,
I might not vote for Drake May for MVP right now, but I think he's going to be a pretty good quarterback.
No, I don't mean about this particular team. I just mean in general about where he is as a coach. I think that Tomlin's biggest weakness as a coach is how he staffs around him. I think that's by far his biggest weakness as a coach. I've seen it in many circumstances in covering college basketball for 40 years in the way that I have. I've seen coaches that aren't comfortable having assistants around them who can get some credit, so to speak. And by that, I mean, have this idea. And all of a sudden the story's about, wow, they look at this, what this guy's doing. And I'm not saying Mike needs all the publicity or anything like that. He puts the coordinators out there every Thursday. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, I don't think that he does a good enough job of bringing in people to challenge himself. And so that's what I would do. If I were his boss, I would make sure that there are people around him who can challenge him. And yeah, you got the final say, but other ideas in the room, not just one coach's ideas that are then disseminated down.
I think that's one issue that's really been pervasive with the Steelers of late is this whole love affair that they have with collective decision-making that they claim to have, whether it's by Tomlin bigfooting or people afraid of expressing their opinions to Tomlin because he's the biggest guy in the organization. It has become more autonomous by growth of Tomlin's place with standing within the hierarchy of the team. Either he's pushing his weight or no one's challenging him because they don't feel like they have the ability to do so. And I think that's come down to player personnel as much as it has been with coordinator hires. Let's get one more before we make our predictions, Mike. This comes from Frank. He says, unless he chooses to leave, Mike Tomlin will be the Steelers head coach through at least the 2030 season. I'm not sure why no one mentions the significance of this. Mike, what do you think, or Frank, what do you think people talk about in Pittsburgh? No one mentions. My favorite thing to emails and tweets they get, how come you guys never talk about? And then I proceed to send them 6 columns that I've written about that exact topic in the last month and a half. No one's talking about Tomlin staying around too long. Like, do you think no one talks about the Pirates spending money either? Do you think no one talks about the Penguins goaltending either? I mean, like, what are we talking about here? No one's talking about Pitt not winning a big game. Like, no one talks about Tomlin. Are you kidding me, Frank?
I don't understand what Frank considers where he left off was, what is the significance of that? What does that mean? I don't know what he considers to be the significance of that. It means that they won't have a bad coach for the next 5-6 seasons.
Also, now, they may not win a playoff game.
That they may not. It depends on the moves they make. I said on the night of the draft in 2022, Tim, 30 seconds after they selected Kenny Pickett, the Steelers will regret this for years. It's now 4 seasons later. They're still regretting it. Even if Aaron Rodgers were having an all-pro season this year, they'd be regretting it because they had to rely on a 41-year-old quarterback to come in, and they've got no obvious future plan. They made a massive mistake in 2022 trying to invent Kenny Pickett into a big-time quarterback. He's a career backup. It's what he looked like at Pitt. It's what he is. They have made mistakes. I'm not pretending they didn't make mistakes and that he doesn't make mistakes. But you can be critical within the confines of this is a very good coach. There aren't very many better than him out there, if any. How can you make the organization better without making a change is the way I would go. Because look, I've seen people talk about the Colts and Shane Steichen. Well, the Colts made a change from Frank Reich, and look at him now. Yeah, but like 5 minutes ago, they wanted to fire Shane Steichen because last year and the year before, whatever, weren't good enough. So it's not that simple. When a team gets it right, they get it right. And it's going to be incumbent upon the Steelers, either through the draft or free agency, I suspect the draft, in the next year, to find a long-term quarterback solution. But I still believe that they are not necessarily in need of a coaching change.
Time for our predictions. I'm going to go with 31-29 Steelers. So the over hits. I'm pretty confident in the over. I'm not necessarily confident in the score. I'm not even all that confident about the winner. I do like the over, which is like at 50.5, I think. And that
you're betting on the over, even though you fear, or you mentioned the concern that they could do the jumbo thing and turn it into 1917 like they did.
I was more talking about the Bengals not, screwing with their own heads and trying to slow it down. So, they could, but I wouldn't do that. I still think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I still think that this is going to be one that goes through. And I missed on my player prop for like the first time all year. I said that Herbig would have 2 sacks. He only had 1. So I missed on that. I saw on, this is Bet Rivers, the Freiermuth sliding odds of over 20, over 30, over 40. The closest to even money is at 30 yards. Freiermuth, 30-plus yards, is at plus 102. That's a plus money bet for Freiermuth against the Bengals to go over 30 yards. I love that bet. I'm going to go heavy on that bet.
I will tell you that I believe I missed my player prop last week for the first time in a long time. I had DK going over, I think, 49.5 receiving yards. He wound up with 35. That's what I was just checking. I was pretty sure he'd missed. I hadn't looked it up until just now, but yes, he did miss. My prop is Jonnu Smith is a plus 240 to score a touchdown. And I kind of like those odds against this defense. We went over the Bengals and their problems with defending tight ends. I had a hard time. I do believe the Steelers will win. If the Steelers can't win this one, then all the conversation that I've heard this week about how it's going to be the same old Steelers this season, I don't think they can get to the same old Steelers this season if they can't win this game.
No, you're right. It's hard to find the path to 10, maybe
9 or 10 wins. Yeah, if they can't beat this.
Because if you're talking about splitting against the Ravens like they always do, and then you got the Lions and Bengals, if they're at 5-5, well, there's your 8 losses already. Now you don't have any room to wiggle. You can't lose the second game to the Ravens. You can't drop the game you always seem to lose in Cleveland. You can't lose to the Bears where you always suck. Yes. like you put yourself really on the cusp of going beneath the 9-8, never had a losing season thing if you drop this one.
Absolutely. It is an enormous game in that respect. And remember, 9-8 might win the division. So that's a worthy goal, at least it's a decent goal. You want to get to double figures, but I don't think they can reach either of those goals without winning this game. So I do have the Steelers winning. I struggled with the score because I mean, that game against the Bengals the last time, the second game of last season, the one on the final day of the regular season, scarred me for I've never seen anything like it. I mean, they literally scored 45 points with relative ease, with the same quarterbacks, relatively the same personnel, just a month earlier, and then decided, no, we don't want to win like that. And this is a fact. This is a true stat. They had 12 first down snaps outside of 2-minute warning first half and a late comeback attempt after they were behind. So 12 regular first downs, they ran on 11 of them. And I think they got more than 4 yards once or twice. I think just once. I mean, they were fail, but this is the way we're going to play it. And they succeeded in holding the Bengals to 18, 19 points, but they failed at scoring any themselves. So I put it at 24-21. because I just don't think they can hold the Bengals below 3 TDs. But they did last year, so maybe they can. I don't know how they're going to play this, but I fear how they're going to play this, and that's like game 2 of 2024.
All right, Mike, appreciate it. And we will do this again next week. Enjoy all the football because there's a ton of it to watch this weekend, and college basketball as well. You heading out to do Big Ten Network?
No, not this early. My Big Ten Network doesn't start until December, so I'll be home watching them, my good friends at BTN, but I'll also be watching my old I used to work with Melanie Collins as well, so I'm looking forward to seeing her sideline reports, and it's going to be a very compelling Sunday afternoon. This is going to be, like I said, maybe the most consequential game they've played in a long time as far as regular season goes.
We'll be back next Friday to talk about it and to look ahead to next week against the Bears as well, coming up here on the Friday Football Show. Tim Benz, Mike DeCourcy with you, courtesy of Mike's Beer Bar on the North Shore. Be at Mike's for Pitt Notre Dame, for the Steelers-Bengals. Go to Mike's on the North Shore.